Hey everyone, Brian Coolis here from Native Instruments. I'm excited to be here today with a brand new update of Traktor. Version 2.10.2 now gives access to stems for all Traktor users. With this update, I'm now able to see the stems in my software. Unlike before, I was only able to view the stems using a Traktor controller that had a screen on it. So for example, the S8, the D2, or the S5. Now that stems view is supported inside of the software, I'm now able to see all 4 stems that I'm manipulating. I can also control the volume, filter, and effects directly from the software using my mouse. So any Traktor user that has the Traktor software can now perform with stems. In addition, the S4 Mark I and Mark II supports stems playback. Let me show you how I'm able to control stems using the S4 Mark II. Using the hardware, I have 4 remix slot buttons here. Slot 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now these 4 slots correspond to the 4 stems that I have in my software. Now typically a stem track is broken up into drums, bass, melodies, and vocals. So in this case on the hardware, slot 1 could be drums, slot 2 could be bass, slot 3 is melody, and slot 4 is vocals. By pressing any of the remix slot buttons, I can mute or unmute each individual stem. In addition to muting and unmuting the stems directly from the hardware, I'm also able to control the volume and the filter. By holding Shift, I can select which stem I want to control the filter or the volume for. So in this case, I want to control the volume for the drums and the vocals. So by holding Shift and selecting slot 1 and slot 4, they start to blink, letting me know that those 2 stems are currently selected. By turning my loop knob to the left or to the right, I'm able to add a high pass or a low pass filter to those particular stems. And what's unique about using the S4 is that once these stems are selected and I just turn my loop knob, the filter is automatically engaged. So I don't have to have this extra step of pushing in the knob to activate the filter and then turning the loop knob. Once I turn the loop knob and I want to turn off the filter, I can just push in my loop knob and it turns off the filter, allowing for the full volume of those 2 stem tracks. Directly to the left of my loop knob, I have my beat jump button. With these 2 stems selected, I can turn my beat jump knob to the left, which is then going to be lowering the volume for these particular stems. If I want to reset the volume back to 100%, all I have to do is push in the beat jump button and it resets the volume back to 100%. Now, if I want to get back to controlling my stems by muting and unmuting, all I have to do is press on the blinking sample play buttons. And now I'm able to mute and unmute those stems just like I was able to before. Now, what's unique about using the S4 with stems playback is I'm still able to control my stems, mute and unmute them. At the same time, I'm still able to use my hotkeys, which is something unique that the S4 offers. Now, if you prefer controlling stems with an actual volume fader, as opposed to just being able to mute and unmute the stem, you could also use the Traktor Control F1, which now supports stem playback. I have 4 volume faders that allow me to raise or lower the volume of each individual stem. Above each volume fader, I have independent filters which allow me to high pass or low pass each individual stem. The F1 also has mute and unmute buttons at the bottom of the controller, similar to how the S4 Mark II works. The pads on the Traktor Control F1 have now been redesigned to allow me to see which stems are currently playing. When I have a stem track playing, I have slot 1, 2, 3, and 4, which represent the 4 stems that are currently playing. So as a stem track is playing, the lights are blinking, letting me know which stem is currently active. Now, I have 2 additional controllers here which also support stem playback. I have the Traktor Control D2 as well as the Traktor Control S5. Now, let me show you how I'm able to control stems using the S5. Currently, I'm on my hotkey button, which gives me 8 hotkeys directly from the hardware. By pressing the Remix Deck button, this now allows me to control my stems. Just like the Traktor Control S4 Mark II, the top row of buttons here allow me to mute and unmute these particular stems. Now, the bottom row of pads here, these are my stem selection pads. By pressing buttons 1, 2, 3, or 4, this now allows me to control either my filter or my volume directly from the hardware. So if I push stem 1 and stem 3, the pads now start to blink. Once they start to blink, by turning the loop knob, this engages my filter. And by holding down Shift and pushing in my loop knob, this resets the filters back to 0% and turns off the filter at the same exact time. Now with these 2 stems selected, if I go to my browse knob on the left, this now allows me to control the volume for these 2 particular stems. Now by pushing in the browse knob, this also resets the volume back to 100%. If I want to get out of stem selection and use my loop knob or my browse just like they were intended for, I can just push my 2 stems again, letting me deselect those stems, and now I'm able to add a loop or browse my music from the hardware. I'm able to control all of the same parameters using the Traktor Control D2, but I have some dedicated knobs and volume faders that allow me to have tactile control over my stems. On the D2, I have 4 volume faders here, which allow me to raise or lower the volume of these particular stems. Now with the D2, I don't have to use a shift function in order for me to control my filter. So the top section above the 4 volume faders allow me to engage the filter per stem. The first step though is to make sure that I'm on my filter page. If I'm not, I can hit the left or the right arrow until I am on my filter section here. Once the page says filter, these 4 on buttons allow me to turn on or off the filter, while the knob directly above it allows me to add a high pass or a low pass filter to each individual stem. Now, if I go over to the other page by hitting the right arrow, I'm now on my Effects Send page. From here, I'm able to choose which stem gets a particular effect when I apply it to this stem track. So if I want to add a reverb or let's say the beat masher effect to a particular stem, all I have to do is just pick which stem I want that effect to be applied to. So in this case, if I want to add the beat masher to, let's say, the drum track, all I have to do is push the on button for this drum stem. And now when I apply an effect to deck A, or the stem track, that effect is only going to be applied to my drum stem. Now, what's unique with the D2 though, is in addition to being able to choose which stem gets the effect applied to it, the knobs above it give me an effect send level. So if an effect, let's say for example, the reverb is too much reverb on a vocal, I'm able to dial back how much of that effect gets applied to the stem. In conclusion, with Traktor Update 2.10.2, all Traktor users now can perform with stems. For more info, go to musiciansfriend.com.